Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Worlds of Country podcast. I'm your host, Andrew. On today's episode, I'm joined by Kate Malone to talk all about her journey as a producer in Nashville. It's such a great conversation. I hope you guys enjoy this one. Talk to you guys on the other side. Almost forgot to record it, so good thing I hit it.
Good thing.
That would have been bad.
That would have been
Hey
bad.
Kate, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. What have you been up to lately?
Well, I actually just got back from vacation, so I'm like slowly re-entering. Like I see the palm trees behind you, and I'm like, oh, the beach. That was so nice.
Now it's
It's
back to reality.
back to reality, and it's like so cold or dreary here today. Nashville winter is like it's 40 degrees and rainy, and you're just like, oh my God, I just need the sun.
Yeah, and then you get those couple snow days, and then everyone goes outside and takes all their pictures, and then it's back to the 40 degrees in the rain.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like usually February, March, we get like one snow and it's like my Instagram is just full of like tiny little snowman from our inch of snow that we have.
Everyone's acting like they've never seen snow before.
Right. And then we're like,
Yeah,
okay, cool. Tank tops now. Let's do it. We're ready. Let's grill. Like summer. Bring it.
yeah. Right away. No in between there.
No, no in between. No in between at all.
So when did you first know that you wanted to get involved in the music industry one way or another?
Oh man. I always really liked music and I started kind of writing some songs and stuff in high school. And I'm from a family where everybody has like an advanced degree, like everybody's got a PhD in something. And so my parents were like, that's cute that you like music, but you need to go figure out how to turn it into a job. So I was like, okay, touche. That seems smart. So there is a school here called MTSU in Murfreesboro, just south of Nashville, that has a recording industry program. And so I was always really drawn to production because, making the music is always in my mind like what it starts with. I mean, you can write songs all day long in your bedroom, but until you can turn it into a record that people can listen to and buy and, experience, then that song basically just doesn't exist. So I was always really into that part of the process.
So where would you say that love for production came from for you?
Oh man, I've always been a person where if I see something that is really kind of magical to me, I want to kind of see behind the curtain for better or worse. Like sometimes that destroys the magic of things for you. Like I would never want to like go back in a chef's kitchen and see the chaos of like how
No,
the
you wouldn't
the
want
food is.
you
Yeah.
wouldn't eat after that.
No, I'd be like stuffed. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so stressed. But music is definitely one of those things. Like I've always kind of liked gear and I've loved like just kind of I've been sort of a little bit of a nerd my whole life. So figuring out how music is made and how recordings are created and stuff was always super fascinating to me. I love to like just be in the lab, like tinkering with things.
Yeah. So you're like a very hands-on kind of person.
Yeah, super hands-on. I love hearing sounds and like trying to reverse engineer them and figure out how was that
Yeah.
created? Like how did they get that
Yeah.
drum sound? How did they get that guitar sound? Like with that vocal chain, like what is that? I always just want to know.
I feel like producers, and don't take this the wrong way, but I feel like they have to be like the biggest nerds out there.
Oh yeah, there is definitely like a little bit of a nerd element because there's a lot of there's a lot of geeking out over details that other people like do not give a crap about. So it's fun in Nashville. The great thing about being here is there's a big community of producers and engineers and people where we can talk about, our favorite, outboard EQ for acoustic guitar and what settings do you use and all these things that other people are like, no, do not bore me with that. I do not care.
So did you always know that Nashville is where you wanted to end up eventually?
No, actually, I really thought I was going to move to LA after I graduated because I was at that point in my life, I was much more into pop. Like that's what I was listening to. I grew up with a lot of country, but at that time I was just what I loved was this sort of like dark indie electro pop. And it seemed like a lot of that was coming out of LA. And I was like, okay, great. LA is where it's at. So I kept kind of trying to save up money to get out there. And then I got a job offer in Nashville, actually at a management company. And so I was like, okay. let me just try this out and see some more of the business side, like see what's up here. Maybe I want to get into management because that's always been interesting to me too. And I was like, I can still record on the side and just do all my other stuff, but let me just take this job. And then I took that job. And I feel like that was really just the pivotal time because then I started meeting a bunch of people here and I started meeting a bunch of professional songwriters. And I was so impressed with like the professionalism of the creatives here. And I started meeting a lot more musicians, and it really seemed to me like everybody who's the best songwriter from their town or the best guitar player or the best drummer is moving to Nashville because it was affordable to live here. And so I just kind of stayed. I mean, if I had had that opportunity, I think, to go to LA, I probably would have. But now at this point, I've had a lot of friends who've moved out there, moved back. Now there's so many genres of music being made here. It's kind of like you don't have
Yes.
to leave to work on whatever you want to work on, except for maybe the movie stuff. Like if you really want to do film scoring or get involved in like soundtracks and stuff like that. That's a lot of that is still LA. But if you want like recorded popular music, that's all happening here.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say is that Nashville sort of still has this perception that it's only country music coming out of there, and there's really so much more than that that comes out of Nashville these days.
Oh yeah. I mean, especially the recent, success of like that Gale song. And that's all, Nashville people written here, produced here. Like just it's awesome.
So, at what point did you feel like Nashville was where you belong?
Honestly, this is a funny question. I feel like really when stuff started to happen in country, like Sam Hunt, like he came on the scene, and my husband actually worked on that very first record, Montevallo. And so I kind of had a little insider window. I was like hearing some of the songs, like if there was a rough mix, Devin would be like, oh my God, you got to hear this. And it was such cool music. And it was like super hip hop influenced. And there was a lot of like stuff that was breaking the mold for what was on country radio at that point. And to me, it was just genuinely cool. Like that was, I love the old country stuff like Vince Gill and all that stuff, but that was the first like real modern country record that that I would just put on and listen to in my car because the songs were great, his voice was great, all the production was so cool, and I was like, wow, I think this is really opening the door. Like I could really have a place here. Because for a while I was like, I know that I love making music. I know this is like a skill that I have, but I just don't know if Nashville cares about like what I want to do, like what the kind of music that I want to make for people. I don't know if I'm going to meet the artists who want to make the kind of music that I want to make. And then Sam Hunt came along. And then after that, it was like Casey Musgrave stuff and stuff that was really shifting some of the Danielle Bradbury stuff, like stuff. And now Ingrid Andress, there's so many artists that are like, it's pop singer songwriter music, and the genre of country is so much wider that to me that is so
Yes.
inspiring. And now it's like I would never leave because it's
Yeah.
just such a great community here.
You kind of feel like you don't have to fit into this narrow box anymore.
Exactly. Like innovation, I
Yes.
think, is encouraged, and artists have been rewarded with success for being innovative. And that is so exciting to me because I think it encourages people to take risks and push boundaries. And that's like the whole thing that gets me up out of bed in the morning is what can we do that's a little different?
Yeah. At the end of the day, no one wants to do the same thing over and over and over again.
No, even though from a
Yes.
business standpoint, I think
It makes
labels and
sense.
publishers, they like the security of a well-paved path. Like they like to know because nobody
Yeah.
knows what's going to be successful.
Yeah.
So if something sounds a lot like something that's already made them a lot of money, they're like, okay, this is a good sign. But the great art, I think, really comes from people saying this doesn't sound like anything else, but I love it
Yeah.
and I want to put it out in the world.
Yeah. That's kind of like the issue where you have to draw the line between the artistic side and the business side of things.
Oh yeah. That I think is the lifelong struggle for producers and artists. It's, when do you be innovative and when are you going to alienate people by doing that? You know.
Is that a line that you feel you've learned to walk over time or
Yeah, I mean, that's a line I try to walk with every project, and that's a discussion I try to have with every artist and say, because usually the people that kind of find their way to me are people that are like, I want to make the music that I want to make. And I don't want to, I work on a lot of indie stuff. So it's people that are like, I want to do what I want to do. I don't want to worry about radio. I'm not chasing radio because that's not, I don't have $1 million to go to radio. So I just want to make what's cool to me. And so, we always have that conversation. It's like what's cool. And then also with the songwriting aspect of it, like you want to stay relatable and you don't want to go too far off the deep end where people are like, what am I listening to? I don't understand this.
So as a producer, what's the process like of finding artists that trust you with their work?
Wow. Well, I feel like for me, it's been a lot of word of mouth. People have heard something that I've done and they've been like, wow, this feels really fresh to me. And, this person, like a lot of times it's friends of friends. They're like, I loved working with you. They felt really listened to and they feel like they got a result that they were super into. And also you didn't break their budget. So
That's an important thing there.
oh my God. Yeah. Because music recording can get very expensive, but luckily right now comparatively it is very cheap in Nashville to make music. So there's actually, if you want to get into that, it's really interesting. So all musician rates, like let's say you're going to book a studio and go into the studio with a band, all musician rates are set by the union. So but there's different scales. So like master scale is the most expensive, that's what labels pay, and you pay per like a 3-hour session. So if you're an indie artist, then the benefit to you is there's something called limited pressing rate, which is so cheap. It's literally $197.50 per person to have these A-lister, players in the studio that play on all the big records that get paid master scale. A lot of them are also willing to work for limited pressing. So you can come here and get the people that played on all your favorite number ones. They have an off day. They're willing to take like a cheaper session and come in and play on some cool songs. And like, it's just wild.
Yeah. So there's like no difference in the quality of the whatever you pay.
No, not at all. You're getting the same guy. I mean, you can look at allmusic.com and like see who's credited for Steel on whatever. And then you can get that same person at a limited pressing rate usually, and they'll come and play on your song. So you're getting the benefit
That's
of
really
this.
cool.
Oh, it's crazy. And again, my husband is a session musician. So the downside is that life has gotten very expensive. Like there's been all this inflation, but their rates at the union, it's very slow. Those rates like just don't change. And so they've been the same for a long time. So as the world gets more expensive, that all gets relatively cheaper. But the benefit to the artist is they're like, holy crap, for like the price of a dinner out, I can get this like amazing person and come play on my song.
You better take advantage of it now before they go
Yeah.
up.
Before they go up, before they're like, we're basically working for pennies. So we got to change this.
What would you say have been some of the bigger lessons you've learned since you've gotten involved in the industry and production specifically?
Oh man. I would say number one, spreadsheets are your friend. Trying to deliver things on time is probably the biggest challenge because there's always things that take a little bit longer. Like you always have to plan for something. Like I've had situations where, we booked a studio, cut a vocal with an artist. The artist didn't like it. They felt like they were not singing well that day. It was an off day. So then we had to like come in and re-sing at my house, like in this room. I cut a lot of vocals here because it's super relaxed. People could sit on the couch. It's very chill. So we like cut vocals there. And then what we ended up doing on that particular song was actually using a lot of the demo vocal, like the scratch vocal from the day that we wrote the song. So there's always going to be chaos of when is it done, and that's probably the second lesson is that finishing a record for an artist is extremely hard. Finishing a song is extremely hard because every single person, no matter who you are, gets to the very end and they start to completely doubt everything. Like they're like, is this a good song? Am I a good singer? Am I weird? Should I even be doing this? They like spiral into this crazy self-doubt. And so as the producer, you have to like know this is coming, and you're like, okay, so we're about to send this to mix. So like I know the text that I'm about to get that's like, man, are you sure this is done? I don't know. Like you just have to know. And then you have to be prepared with like, yes, this was so great. Remember how you felt the day you wrote the song. Remember how you felt the day we cut in the studio. You were like so over the moon, because it could be like the best future Grammy winner record ever. But there's probably going to be a day when you hate it and you just want to throw the whole thing in the
Yeah.
garbage. Because it's psychology. It's like things get close to being done and you're like, oh my God, is this good enough?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's
So
such a natural feeling also.
yeah, so you have to really learn to take that with a grain of salt from artists and just know that there's a lot of insecurity. And I have it too. I mean, I'm sending all these files. I'm the last person to touch the files before they go to mix. So you better believe that I'm still like I'm listening to every track and I'm like, okay, does this sound cool? Are we sure this is cool? Like, do we like this drum fill? Is this like hi-hat sample weird? Is the snare okay? Like I'm having that too, but nobody gets to see me have it because I'm just like by myself with my computer. So I get to go through all my freak out like completely alone. And so everybody does it. So it's a lot of having empathy for, how to get over the finish line. Cause that's really ultimately that's my job, is to take a song and take it over the finish line, get it out to the people, and hopefully have everybody feel as good about it as is possible. So
So you're sort of like the last leg of a relay race there.
yeah, I'm the last leg. And a lot of times, if the song has been written here, I co-write a lot of the stuff that I produce, because the artists is there. A lot of what I do too is kind of help people develop their brand, or develop their brand for this project. Like what aspect of them as an artist do we want to kind of emphasize and lean into? So a lot of times I'm a co-writer on the song too. So I'm there start to finish. So it's a lot, it's a long process, and it's easy to lose perspective at points on that way. And so you just have to like really stay the course and trust the gut instincts that you had. That when you have the self-doubt, you have to be like, nope, not today. Not today, Satan.
Maybe tomorrow, but not today.
Maybe tomorrow, but not today.
On the flip side of the lessons, what would you say have been some of the bigger challenges that you faced?
Oh man, the challenges. You know what I think it is? I think there are times, and this has happened to me like many times, like especially when you're in the studio. So you're trying to work at a really fast pace. Usually I am, because I'm trying to stretch a dollar. So I do a lot of pre-production, and then the studio goes really fast. So like we're cutting like one song an hour, we're really trying to burn through some material. And so the biggest challenge I think sometimes is keeping the perspective of, is this cool? And so there have actually been a couple times where, I mean, it depends on how many songs you're doing. Like, I feel like if you're in the studio doing like 8 songs, one of them is going to be a fail. One of them is just going to be like the style you chose wasn't right, or like the soundscape just wasn't right, or something about it like you did in the wrong key, like the tempo was not right. So I think the challenges are anticipating that one of them is going to be a fail, and being okay with that, like not having to get everything right on the first try. And then sometimes I've had the opposite experience where we thought, like there's a thing I'm working on right now where we got done with one of the songs, and we were like just done in the studio, and we were like, that just didn't work. And then later when we opened up the session, we were like, actually, a lot of this does work. It's just this guitar part is just weird and cheesy. And so that just needs to be muted. And we'll redo that. Just pick another part. But I think the biggest challenge is knowing that you're not going to knock everything out of the park the first time, but you just need to hope that your percentage is still pretty high, and
Yeah.
just guiding everybody through that, and allowing people to say like, I don't love the way that turned out. Like, let's rework this one. And if you can get 7 out of 8, that's freaking awesome. Even if you get
Yeah.
6 out of 8, I think that's freaking awesome. But yeah, I think that's a big challenge. It's just knowing that something is going to be a misfire, and being
Yeah.
like, it's fine.
Yeah. At the end of the day, no one's perfect and nothing we do is perfect. So you gotta be able to just move on from those.
Exactly. And you're just making
Yes.
choices. And I think as a producer, you're kind of the leader in a lot of ways. And the leader doesn't always mean you get it right every time. It just means that you have the conviction to be really confident of a choice every time, right? You have to just make a decision. Because if everyone's just standing around in the studio, like too scared to play a freaking note because they don't know if it's going to crush it, then, you're wasting money and you're wasting
Yeah.
time. So you just have to pick a horse and
Nothing's
ride it.
gonna go on there.
Nothing's going to go on. So sometimes you pick the wrong horse and it's fine. And there's usually ways to just kind of rework, readapt, whatever. And you can't get too caught up in that.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to anybody looking to go into production?
Wow. I think this is a great time to go into production because there's a lot that you can learn on your own. So if your goal is to be a producer, kind of in the way I am, where you're doing stuff in the box, but you're also booking a band and project managing and doing things at big studios, you can learn a lot of what you need to know, like basically online. Like there's a lot of plugins of the gear that you're going to see, all this expensive stuff that's in studios. There's a lot of plugins of like all the classic compressors. You can learn, all these channel strips. You can learn a console without ever even having to see it. So that's advice one, is like you can like go for it on your own. There's a lot of stuff you can teach yourself as much as you can teach. My second piece of advice is make friends with tracking engineers, because in a multi-track environment, you cannot be both. It does not work. I've been in the room where people have tried to do both, and the session always suffers. Like the flow always suffers. So you need to have like somebody who's keeping an eye on, is the snare drum clipping? Did we lose a channel of our overhead mics? There is something like, did a knob get bumped and now our tom sound is different or whatever. You have to have somebody who's keeping an eye on the micro so you can keep an eye on the macro, which is what we're doing cool? Is the artist happy? Is the general direction good? So that's two jobs. So that's probably my biggest piece of advice, is if you want to get into a multi-track environment, find an engineer that you trust, find people who can get good sounds and they love trying to tinker with mic sounds on acoustics, and they want to like multi-mic things, and they want to like, get into all that, because you cannot, I mean, you can get a little bit into that, you can dabble in that, but when you're in a fast-paced tracking environment, that cannot be your job. That's outside the scope of what you're doing, because you're big picture. You're asking yourself, is this soundscape connecting to the lyric? Am I presenting this song in a way that feels true and honest and, real? Like, is this going to connect with people, or is the music getting in the way of that? That's the number one question. And if you're worried about like your gain staging or whatever, and like what's happening with your gear, you're completely out of that mentality. So I would say those are the two biggest things. Like teach yourself everything you can teach yourself, and then find engineers, like start getting to know engineers that you trust, because they're an integral part of the process.
So you sort of can't like start micromanaging once you get in the studio.
No, absolutely not. And if you are micromanaging, what you're micromanaging is the parts that the band is playing. So it's your job to say like, okay, rhythm section, let's hear bass and drum solo, to make sure the bass part and like these kick drum hits are like settling into the right kind of groove. You're micromanaging that. You're micromanaging guitar tone. You're like, this is a little too crunchy. Maybe we need a little cleaner. We need maybe like a little more reverb. You're micromanaging that. So is the audio that's being captured of a good quality is not something you can micromanage, because that's too big of a job. I mean, you have like so many different, you have like 30 channels of audio coming into the board between all the drum mics and, all these different outputs and all this stuff. You cannot keep an eye on all that. Like you're keeping an eye on, are the sounds good and does this serve the song?
I also want to dive a little bit into the gender gap amongst producers, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
So do you feel that there's sort of this stigma around women getting involved in production and the techie side of music?
I think I get that question a lot. And I do think there's a little bit of an intimidation factor for some people with gear, and for some of the more like, engineering side stuff. Like it seems scary to, I think, to some people to be like, okay, well, how does a compressor work? What is the technology behind this? But it's really not scary. So I think there's a little bit of that, but really I think the real thing that's responsible is, a couple generations ago, or even really just a generation ago, you had to have a producer take you under their wing to get access to a recording environment. You had to be able to intern. You had to be like the trash taker outer or whatever to be able to get in the studio and be around gear, because you can't learn gear unless you're around gear. But now, this goes back to the self-taught thing. Like, you can sit in your room by yourself. Like, there's no one to gatekeep this knowledge from you now. You can
No.
learn so much of it on your own. So I think we're going to start to see the gender gap closing, because those jobs that used to go to like Johnny's cousin, or so and so's like nephew or whatever, because it was like a bro hang. Now you don't have to be a part of like the bro hang to be able to learn all these skills. You can learn these skills completely on your own.
I also feel that being one of the few female producers help more female artists gravitate towards you as opposed to maybe a male producer.
Um, yeah, I think so. And I think the reason is maybe not necessarily like because I'm a woman, but I think I'm perceived as more of like a collaborator and a teammate. So I think sometimes people get the impression that male producers are very ego driven and they want to run the show because they want it to be their show. And some male producers are like that. Some are not, some are very like collaborative, but my style is a lot more collaborative and team focused, and I want to listen and I really want to hear what the artist wants to do, as opposed to like telling them what I think they should do to be successful. So I think especially younger female artists, if someone's 16 or 17, they're going to get a lot of people that are like, okay, little girl, I'm going to tell you how to be good. And 16 or 17-year-old girls do not want to be told that. They're like, yeah, okay, I got it, buddy. And so then I feel like sometimes people go through these projects that they're like, I'm being treated like I'm a toddler, and this is so annoying. And so then they want to work with somebody who's going to be more of a peer. And then I get that phone call. So I don't know if it's gender or what, but I do think that my approach to the process as a collaborator does get me work. Because to me, that's the biggest priority. If something doesn't feel true to the artist, they can't get out there and sell it. So
Yeah.
it needs to be a team effort. It needs to be something they're really behind, and as opposed to music they're being told to make or a way they're being told to create.
Yeah. The hardest thing I feel like as an artist would be to just try to sell something that's not you at the end of the day.
Yeah. But I mean, once you get into these higher levels where the label's like, we need this and we need that. I mean, I've heard so
Yes.
many stories, male, female alike, where, a label's like, wow, I really love what you do. Now let's go change it all. And now you are gonna work with these other people and these other writers. And then it
And
loses the
yeah,
cool factor. It loses like
it
the
won't
jack.
resemble anything you did before, but here it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, and it happens all the time because of like sort of political inner business working reasons, or
Yeah.
they're like, we don't love this certain thing about it, and so they change the collaborative team, and then it just loses the juice. Like, and then they're like, oh, we don't like this anymore, and then you get dropped. So
I also feel like the amount of new channels that there are to sort of get your music heard has sort of made it more I can't think of the word, but easier to go independent
oh
than it
yeah.
was before.
Yeah, because you don't have a label that's gatekeeping you from the fans. You can get out there and find fans. If you have like an hour to spend on social media, you can get out there and connect to people, because people comment on your stuff. You can comment back. You can DM people. You can post things. I feel like the big trend on TikTok is like, tell me what I should write a song about. And then it's just streams of like comments of like, write this from a male perspective, write this from a female perspective, and it's a lot of cool two-way inspiration, where I've been in some of those co-writes where I'm like, well, so what are people saying on your TikTok? Like, maybe there's an idea there we can write. And it's cool. It's like a really cool way. It's nice to have such a direct connection, I think, as a music creator, even though I'm not an artist, to feel directly connected to the fans, like through the artist. It's awesome.
And you sort of get like this instant feedback also, which is helpful or hurtful.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as you just only take your feedback from the comments and you don't take your feedback from the algorithm of like, why did this only get 50,000 views and this other video of something stupid got like a million views?
Yeah.
I don't know. You can't take the numbers as feedback, but I think really the value of the feedback is like in all your comments. So if you're a fan that is listening to this podcast, comment, 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 comment. Everybody loves it. Like people want to read what you have to say. So
Yeah. You can only judge it by the people watching it. You can't judge it by the people not watching it at the end of the day.
oh my God, I love that quote.
Yes.
That's so
Yes.
great. That's so true. I'm going to use that. I'm going to be like, you can only judge it by the people watching it, not by the people not watching it.
Not watching.
It's so true.
So what are you working on these days?
Oh man, so I have this one project I'm super pumped about. It's this guy, Bobby Watson, and we just really hit it off because I feel like there's kind of an Americana wave that's coming in country. I feel like Zach Bryan is leading the charge. It's like a different style of songwriting. There's like no trucks, no jean shorts, no beer. It's like a little grittier and a little more, I think it reads a little more authentic to me. And so I really hit it off with this artist and we were just talking about like the next thing that we think is going to be cool. And so we're doing a project that's very sort of like a Stapleton thing. It's a little kind of like a Jackson Dean thing. There's some 60s soul influences. Like there's a little like Leon Bridges flavor to some of it. Um, and I'm just like super pumped about it because that's the first project I've done where I was like, the band is so critical. Like I'm not going to be adding a ton of stuff. Like it's going to come back to me and I'm going to add like textural stuff and pads and atmospheric things and transitional like swooshes and maybe some extra percussion. But, you know, it is what the band played. Like it needs to feel like that. It needs to feel like this real experience, like you're sitting in a room watching this band play this whole record. And that's been such a cool experience. I love these songs. I co-wrote a lot of the songs that are on there, and it's just real. It's very human. It's very relatable. Whether you live in Chicago or whether you live in freaking the sticks of Alabama, it's all talk. It's just human stuff, and it's such a cool record. His voice is like incredible. He's got that really gruff, raspy voice. So it's been such a great experience to just feel like my job is to just capture it, just capture what's happening. I don't have to create anything. I don't have to do a ton of coaching. I just need to like put the mic up and get him comfortable and let him freaking do his thing because it slays. And I'm just super pumped about that. It's going to be some great material. And I think it's very much, on the wave of kind of the next thing that people are ready for, which is authenticity.
I feel like it must be so special when you sort of have something that feels so natural in front of you.
It is. It is. Like those are the artists that you feel grateful as a producer. They're just kind of doing their thing and it seems so effortless. You're like, wow, I just have to just be a part of this process and like not screw it up. And it's gonna be good.
That's the most important part there.
Right. Like don't get in the way of the flow. Don't screw it up. Just gently guide things, but don't try to control anything and just let it freaking happen because it's great. When it just happens, it's freaking great.
So I want to do a little rapid fire with you before I let you go, if that's cool with you.
Oh, I love it. Okay, bring it on.
Let's
Lightning
do
round.
this. Let's do this. Would you rather have 20 fingers or 20 toes?
20 fingers for piano
Good
playing, for
answer.
sure.
Would you rather what would if you could only eat one food the rest of your life, what would it be?
Quesadillas with hot
Good
sauce.
answer. With hot sauce. I had to throw that in there.
Yeah, that's the whole point of a quesadilla. It's just like a vehicle for hot sauce.
Yes. If you could produce anyone in the world, who would it be?
Oh shit, probably Casey Musgraves, or maybe
Another
her
good answer.
ex-husband Rustin Kelly. I don't know. They're both like super hardcore favorites of mine.
Yes. Pancakes or waffles?
Oh, waffles, definitely more syrup.
Syrup, hot sauce, we're getting all the
Oh, all the sauces. If there's a sauce, I will put it on there, and I'll put more than I should.
If you could erase one word from the English language, what would it be?
Oh man. Oh my God, that is such a hard question. I honestly do not even know the answer to that. I have no answer. I have literally no answer.
You could pass. It's okay.
Okay, I'm gonna pass because honestly, I don't know. I'm like, what? I'm like, I like all the bad words. I like all the cuss words. So we can't erase
Gotta
them,
think of a good word.
right? I feel like there's a place for every word. I'm a songwriter. There's every word has its own
Yeah.
place.
You gotta find a word to use them, find a way to use them all.
Yeah, you got to find a way. There's a way out there. Someone's like, disestablishmentarianism. Fine, put it in a song. I don't even know if that's a word, but
Gotta find something to rhyme with that now, which is gonna be even harder.
it's a lot of syllables with that one. Eminem could do it. He's the master of all rhyming.
Yes, that is. I agree with that take.
Yeah, he'll figure it out. If anyone can do it, it's that crazy man.
Yes. If you could collaborate with three people, dead or alive, who would they be?
Oh, okay. Alive, Rick Rubin. Um, Dead, Jimi Hendrix. Um, Man, I wonder if my last one should be an alive or a dead. You know who I love, who is actually like a current dude in Nashville who's a producer is Luke Dick. I feel like his taste is freaking incredible. I would love to just like sit with him and just watch what he does. And he gets really cool guitar sounds and you know, so he's alive, so maybe it will happen at some point.
How to put it out there.
I'm gonna put it out there. Maybe he'll listen to this and call me.
What's the most expensive impulse buy you ever made?
Oh God. Okay. Hands down, I like was getting some pictures taken and I love All Saints. Like, you know that brand? They're like British. I went to London, all their stuff's everywhere. It's like so cool. It's like kind of edgy, but whatever. So I was up late one night and there was this jacket that was so sick. It had all this, it's like a black leather jacket, fringe, you know, freaking awesome. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy this and then I'm gonna like just take pictures in it and return it. And then I never returned it because it was so great. But it was like it wasn't that expensive, but it was expensive for me. It was like $600 or something. And I was like, I cannot afford this at all. This was a couple years ago where I was like, this is highly stupid. I should not be spending this money. But it was the coolest jacket I've ever seen. I still have it. It's still in my closet. I still wear it.
As long as they're still using it, it's not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not living beyond your means, you have no imagination.
No, you don't. It'll all
Right?
work out at the end.
It'll all come out. That's why you get a credit card, right? You're like, I can't afford this, but I'm gonna buy it.
We're giving a lot of great advice today to everyone.
That's actually really bad advice. Nobody listen to that, please. Only buy things you can afford. Don't be like me.
Well, thank you so much again for taking the time for this.
Yeah, no, this was great. I love the
This
podcast. I feel
was
like you
great.
have so many
Thank
great
you.
guests and it's
Thank you.
like it's all so interesting. I've really been
Thank
into
you.
listening to it.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, bye.
Y'all, thank you guys so much again for tuning in. If you liked what you heard from Kate, be sure to go check her out on social media. And if you liked what you heard from the podcast, be sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening. And also go check us out on social media at Worlds of Country on all social media platforms. Thank you guys so much again. Talk to you guys next time.